What's up, everyone, and welcome to the RRBG podcast. In this episode, I talked to Frank Godla of Metal Injection, Metal Sucks, and the band Meek is Murder. He's one of the co-founders of Metal Injection, which is one of the most respectable metal sources of news and entertainment. We talked about how he got that started. We talked about the Slay at Home festivals, which he put together during the pandemic. We talked about mental health and how he's been dealing with it since he was a young child and leading through the pandemic and everything like that. We talked about his musical aspirations with the band Meek is Murder and Night Soil. It was a really fun conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure to follow him at Frank Injection on all the things. If you don't check out Metal Injection on a regular basis, I don't know what you're doing, but check it out. If you're into metal or any kind of rock music, please click the little subscribe button down there and the little bell for notifications. That way you can see us whenever we post new videos. And check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/RRBG, and support the podcast. Cheers. Sweet. All right. Real quick, shout out to the Killcliff guys for sending me this. When I don't have time to make my coffee, my morning coffee, which is like a procedure, I go for the Killcliffs to wake me up. And these are sugar-free and delicious, and they have enough caffeine to wake my ass up, which is, it takes a lot. I'm Cuban. I was drinking Cuban coffee at 3, so I need this. All right. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the RRBG podcast. I am here with Frank Godla of Metal Injection, Meek is Murder, Metal Sucks, the Slay at Home Festival. I mean, you're one of the busiest cats I know.
Thank you. Well, it's, you know, it is what it is, man. I'm a very ambitious dude, and it's the only way I know how to live. So.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I think we are kindred spirits in that sense. You know, I tend to spread myself too thin, and my wife always gives me shit about it because she's like, "Oh, why do you keep saying yes to things?" I'm like, I don't know, because that's how you get things done.
You know, well, first of all, I mean, that's probably why you need, you know, that jolt in the morning with all that coffee. You know, I actually went to full decaf. I was a big coffee drinker as well since I was like 3 years old, and I had to switch to decaf because of my anxiety issues that ran into panic issues, and really kind of narrowing down in life, like what is it that bothers you or makes you feel a certain way, and then you start to eliminate things, kind of like what you do with your diet, you know. And that was just one of those things. Finding that coffee was a huge trigger for my you know, anxiety and panic problems. Was kind of it was an interesting one, but I had to go decaf, and just those first few weeks were just terrible, but here I am, you know. But anyway, I wanted to say that, you know, in as far as saying yes to things, I think that's like the best way to be honest with you. You know, I'm a yes man, and even if I'm not ready for it, if I can't do it, if I haven't figured it out, just say yes. And you'd be surprised what life throws at you, you know, and the opportunities and stuff like that. I mean, everything that I have, everything that I'm a part of is simply because I said yes to something, you know, including Metal Injection. So,
yeah, man. And, you know, you'll be surprised as well as to what you're capable of. I think a lot of the trepidations of saying no, or like, I don't know, it's just self-consciousness. Like, you're just being self-conscious. You're like, I don't know if I can do it. But you'll be surprised when you get to that moment and you're put in that situation. You can pull it off.
Yeah. It's like what is that saying? Self-doubt killed more dreams than failure ever did.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the truth, man. You know, like we as human beings, we self-doubt all the time. I still have a tremendous amount of self-doubt in certain areas of my life, never about what I can do. Like to me, I think after, you know, 20 years of just saying yes, jumping in and doing it, like I've kind of like established with a relationship with myself, at least, where I'm like, yeah, I really think I could do anything, you know, if I really focus and put my time in it, and I'll figure it out. Like, you know, and it's scary. It always is scary the first time you try and do anything. I mean, even doing something like Slay at Home, it's never been done before. I had to go first. And even just trying to explain to labels and bands and publicists and everybody like what the vision was, and not have an example to show, was like this really, really weird thing to get through, you know. But after the first one was successful, like all the other ones were easier, and now there's, you know, a lot of my competitors are taking that same idea and running with it, whatever else. It's always hard to go first, man. Yeah. But even whether you're doing that in the world or you're doing that for yourself, you're going to have those doubts. And then once you finish them, you're going to feel elated and, uh, you have a tremendous amount of respect for what you just went through. So,
Absolutely. And for those that are watching and listening that aren't aware of what he's talking about, the Slay at Home Festival, man, I got to commend you. That was quite an endeavor during one of the toughest times in the world for us. Mid-pandemic, you decided to put on a metal music festival, which, when you hear it on paper, it's like, what? And then you see what's going on, where you had all these bands just performing in any way that they could. If they're Zooming from their bedrooms, or if they have a cool studio with setup, that's great too. But you gave us, the fans of music, something to watch and listen to during one of the toughest times, for that specifically.
Well, thanks for watching, man. I mean, it was a tremendous undertaking. I have never done anything like it. I mean, I've put on like showcases and shows and stuff before, but in terms of doing something like that virtually, once again, it wasn't done before. So it was like a really big challenge to kind of figure out exactly how it was going to look. And even myself, like, the guy who put it together, the first one, like I wasn't so sure what exactly it would look like until I actually finished editing it all and had it all laid out, and all the graphics there and the order, and because a lot of I think that first one had something like 300 people involved.
Jeez,
so
great.
Yeah, so I mean, like, just think about how many bands and artists there are, and then the cover collaborations where you're picking people, and then there's managers and everybody else involved. So it's just like that adds up. A lot of people to talk to, nonstop to come together to do this initiative where we're raising money for good causes, and more than anything, create content that the fans out there would watch and get something out of, and a source of community, really. I think that's the biggest takeaway from the Slay at Home series, or the two festivals that I wound up doing, was that it garnered this community where people were like active and ready to like find new things out there. And I really I see that going away now that, like, the pandemic's dying out or whatever else. We're settling back into our old ways. And that really kind of upsets me, because I would have thought that we would have learned the lesson, but we have that moment, Slay at Home. And that's kind of like why I took it away. Like, I just thought it had its moment, and it worked in this sense of what the world was going through. But once, things started going back to normal or whatever else, like, it just didn't make that much sense anymore. And I could, see it being, I'd rather go out with a bang than anything else. So
yeah, that makes sense. Go out on top, as they say. I agree with you in the sense it's upsetting that it went away, because I was thinking about that. Like, once we get back to live shows, I think this needs to keep going, because it's another way to make money, to raise money. It's another way to provide your fans with a new thing that, not everyone can go to a live show. Not everyone can get out of their house still to this day. There's still people that, are still dealing with autoimmune issues, or even just mental health issues where they don't feel comfortable around people. And they still need something, and I think we should have both things. Why? ¿Por qué no los dos?
Yeah.
Like, why?
No, absolutely. I agree. And talking to the last festival thing that I did, I included panels. So really, I mean, with Slay at Home, although it was a virtual festival, I really took elements of all my favorite festivals that, because I'm very fortunate where my job is to travel the world and go to different festivals and meet, like people, tastemakers of all kinds all over the world. So going to a lot of European festivals, which I truly think is the pinnacle of metal festivals, like, I mean, what we do in America is cute, but it's just not, it's not the same at all. If you go to a European festival, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, everything from, the vibe to, the stages, to how they treat the bands, how, you can go on and on. There's many lists out there about why European festivals differ so much from American festivals, and a large source of it is the experience of it versus the greed of it, you know. And with that, like I you know, taking the virtual fest approach, like I was like, well, this is my opportunity to really take a lot of the elements that I enjoy from all the festivals I've been to around the world and kind of implement them into something new. And that's really what I did. You know, I took pieces of like Roadburn, for instance, of like, you know, taking like commissioned materials. That's something that's really speaks of Roadburn and what they're willing to do. Is like they have such a relationship and chemistry with the bands that they work with, where they're willing to ask a band to be like, well, we want these four members, you know, prolific members, to create something entirely new that's never been heard before, you know. And Pallid Vale is an example of that. Where I got, you know, members of Dillinger and Revocation and Gorguts and Car Bomb together to create something magical. And you know, people are still talking about it. I mean, I think yesterday, the day before, we're working with a small label, a boutique label, to put it out on a 7-inch for the first time. You know,
I'd buy that.
Yeah, so it's, you know, like it's really a product of all my appreciation for festivals around the world that I've been to, you know, and taking little elements here and there. And I agree with you that something like that should exist and will continue to exist. I mean, like there's other examples out there doing it. It was a massive undertaking for me personally to do, especially with running 100 other things at the same time. You know, like I literally several times almost killed myself, just like having like so much panic attacks, you know, like because of that time where I was in my life and the amount of work that I had, and I can barely keep up with anything. I wasn't sleeping, you know, maybe like an hour or two a night. It was bad, you know. It's a lot of work to do something that big, but I'm glad that I did it, and I look back on it really, really fondly. And I think the surprising thing was the community it cultivated. And I love that people were willing to take a chance and see something new. They found out, so many people told me that they found out about, oh my God, I just found my new favorite band through your thing or whatever. And I'm like, fucking A, that's what it's about, man. Music discovery 101. That's why I continually go to festivals and places like Roadburn or Summer Breeze or Domination Fest, or, you know, a lot of my favorites out there. You know, not because they're the type of festival that's trying to give you nothing but headliners so they can sell the place out, but really the ones that are willing to bring up bands and make, you know, be a tastemaker, take a tiny little band that no one's ever heard of and put them on like a slot, like a 3 p.m. or even like 8 p.m. slot. And that's really what I try to do with Slay at Home, is like, I didn't tell anyone when they're going on, what their slot was, because the expectation was that it starts at 3 p.m. and ends at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you're going to sit there for the, you know, 4 or 5 hours, whatever the fuck, and watch it all, or try to watch it all, just to get a taste of what's out there that you might be missing, you know?
Absolutely, man. There's so many talented bands that just never get an opportunity. You know, including like, well, my band got opportunities. I'm not going to just poo on everything that we did, because we got some chances to open up for some great bands and, you know, tour and all that stuff. But there are a lot of bands in Miami, specifically where I'm from, that you just never get out of there. They're stuck there, and they never get the opportunities. So it's really great to see that, you know, that's the mentality you went into it, you know, just to push some unknown bands just so people can discover new music, because people get stuck in their loops of, you know, just listening to 2 or 3 albums on repeat for months until something new comes out from that band or something, you know.
Dude, small bands are always going to be my, you know, I feel like I have a responsibility to kind of put them there. You know what I mean? It's really easy to talk about a lot of the big bands all day long, and you know, in a lot of ways we have to cater to that, because that is the driving traffic. That's what keeps the lights on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Kind of like how Nickelback is what kept metal afloat for so long. You know, with like, it's crazy to think, but there's, you know, Goo Goo Dolls was the #1 thing on Metal Blade Records. You know, Nickelback was the #1 thing on Roadrunner Records. Like every label has their big band that keeps the lights on, and then all these others that they're trying to, that they really support and pour the love into. And it's no different with media too. Like we have the ones that we have to talk to because they keep the lights on, and then but for every one of those, there's these baby bands that I love. But also there's the opportunity to take these baby bands and make them, household names. Look at, I'm the first person to interview Ghost, in there, and also the first person to interview Def Heaven, and there's just so many of them out there that like I found them in their demo days, and just really appreciated the shit out of them and wanted to like put as much effort and time I could into talking about them, and I had no idea that they would become, huge or whatever, but here we are, and I'm really excited about that. Subscribing to something that Brian Slagle always says, what's good for metal is good for me. I don't need my name attached to everything. I don't have this ego where, I need a pat on the back. It's just an amazing thing to be part of this scene and watch it grow. And whether it's me or not, like I'm still going to reap the benefits being part of it,
Sure. Yeah, I hear you, man. And that's one of those thin lines that I'm kind of trying to navigate now throughout my career, is trying to figure out how to grow myself to make myself as a viable thing, as a platform to help any of these smaller bands. Because, when I first started this show, like a lot of my friends were like, oh, when are you going to have me on? I'm like, if I have you on now, you're going to get 5 people.
Right.
Right. It's not worth it to you. And I have to kind of build something to then I can shine a light on you, and it matters. People actually want to listen. Right. But there's that thin line of like, I don't want to come off as something I'm not trying to push myself. I'm not trying to get myself over. I'm just trying to build a brand so that I can then put everybody over, and it's a weird line, because some people get, they see what I'm trying to do and they're like, you're just you're fame chasing or something. And I'm like, no, it's not at all. Like, that's not it at all. But
if you want fame chasing, you're in the wrong scene, man.
Right. Exactly what I'm trying to tell them. Like, I'm a metalhead. Like, how am I fame chasing? We're living in vans and, eating crumbs for lunch.
There's a ceiling to this game for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But
people, they don't get that, man. I see like shitty comments on YouTube or Instagram or whatever about some certain things that we do on, whether it's Metal Injection or Metal Sucks. And it's like, you clearly don't understand how the world works. That's when I see those comments, that's like my reaction to it, is like, do I really engage in this? Like, no, because they really don't understand how it works. Like, they're just talking emotionally instead of rationally. So.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about, is there any PTSD from, you were saying you were almost killed yourself with panic attacks during this whole stay at home thing. Like, now that you're not doing that, you're still doing a bunch of things, but do you feel like a residual kind of like, PTSD? That's the only word I can think of.
Yes and no. I mean, the thing about that time in my life was, my dad was passing away. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and that a few months prior to me starting, it was like, my whole world basically went crumbling week after week, basically, like, with his deterioration. And then I believe it was March is when the pandemic basically had us all in-house and shut. And April is when I started Slay at Home. I mean, it's actually pretty soon after the pandemic had us in quarantine. Like, I mean, I want to say like 2 weeks after quarantine started was when I was just like, all right, I need to do something. Like people are already 2 weeks in, people are already complaining, oh, I had to cancel this, I had to cancel that. And, as everybody being inside, locked in, I'm not that kind of person. Like, I don't do well at all being caged. I don't even like being in the same city for too long, which is why I'm a nomad. I just like get on a flight and go whenever I fucking want to, because I need to, like, for my own mental health. But it was one of those things where I just was keeping in touch with a lot of the bands and a lot of my friends and listening to their stories, and I felt really awful about the stuff that was happening to them, and we were all kind of commiserating, and I was like, man, like if I don't do something, like, I don't know that anyone else will. So, and then, so I just did. I saw a couple of attempts. I think like Warner Brothers or some Warner Music wound up doing like their own attempt, and it was like really poorly done, where it was like, it seemed more like a cash grab for them than anything else, where they were just kind of assembling sets. The way it looked, it was like they were doing something similar, where they had exclusive sets that were being filmed for this, but it wasn't. All they wound up doing is taking like, I don't know, like a band set from South by Southwest 2010 and showing it. I'm like, you could fucking find this on YouTube, guys.
Yeah.
Like, this is really poorly done. And it was just like, they were selling t-shirts and all kinds of shit like that, like hotcakes, but they weren't transparent about where the money is going. And I'm always, as somebody who's worked in charity now for, I guess, 11, 12 years, it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I have to make sure that it's transparent. Like, I hate a company that just accepts money on behalf of a charity, and they don't tell you like the percentages that wind up going out to the actual charity, what they're doing with it, what the cash flow is like. So I'm always very weary about that stuff. So I thought, like, instead of just bitching and complaining about how other people are doing it wrong, why don't I just do something that I thought was right? So that's really where Slay at Home was. And yeah. And as far as like PTSD, it was a tremendous amount of work and everything. And like I said, dealing with the aspect of my dad. I mean, looking back, I don't know that the panic attacks, I mean, and they were daily. There was a couple where like strangers found me outside in streets and brought me to a hospital. Like,
What?
I get them real bad. Like, they're not just simple panic attacks. Like, they're like seizures,
Oh shit.
and it was a learning experience. Like, I never dealt with that before, but it was an eye opener for sure. And, you know, uh, something I never want to go back to. So I'm always cognizant of that, when I feel something brewing, like, all right, calm down, look away, look at the wall, look at something real, feel my hands, like, think about where I'm at, just be present. I mean, like, if you go to therapy, they're always going to talk about being present, how it's, the most important thing. And you learn certain tricks about how to keep that, going. But, at that time, I was just all over the place, with my dad, especially. That was like the main thing. And COVID was like the least of my worries, really. I mean, obviously it was there. I wasn't thinking about it actively, but it's there all the time. You're shut inside your house. You're taking off your clothing at the door because you don't want to cross-contaminate your couch, because we didn't know anything about it at that time.
Yeah.
It was just really just a fuck time mentally for everyone. But as somebody who was also losing the biggest influence in my life, and, had deteriorating relationships, and, and putting on this festival that, like, I wasn't ready to do. It was just way too much. So it was, when I think back on it, it is kind of like this hyperventilating moment, but like, no, I don't, I think my entire career, really my entire life, has been built on taking on too much and feeling it out, working it out. So I was including now.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, how did you deal? Like, how did you, have you been diagnosed with something that causes those panic attacks that are almost like seizures, because I get them too,
Oh, yeah.
but they're not like that. I mean,
no, I just have clinical severe depression and anxiety.
wow.
I was basically born with that. Some of my earliest memories in life surrounded death when I was like 4 and 5 years old, and just never stopped, like witnessing all kinds of really crazy shit, crashes, and I had a, pretty rough life, that I didn't know was rough until I guess I started asking other people about their lives and realizing how fucked up my own was. And it started to make a lot of sense, why I feel the way I do. And by no means do I feel, singled out in that regard. There's millions of people out there who deal with depression and anxiety every day of their life, and some worse than I have, so I feel for it. It's kind of changed my course of thinking and living, really, to be aware of those issues. And one point in my life, I thought I was going to be a therapist, to be honest with you.
Really? Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
when I was in college, I was a double major for psychology and music. So even from early on in my life, I knew there was a lot in your mind. Like the mind really channels all kinds of energy to doing and living, and the mistakes and choices and everything that you make is really bound to your mental state. And I'm not going to pretend like I was always healthy,
Yeah.
and mentally healthy. So um, it's become a really big thing in my life to kind of meet people in the middle somewhere with that. And I have friends that come up to me and just want to talk, and because I went through a lot of shit and they just want to talk about it, their stuff that they're going through, because they think that I would understand. And I'm more than happy to say nothing and just listen, because a lot of the time that's what people need.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And it's such a roller coaster when you discover that. Like, I went through this similar thing where, my upbringing was horrific. And then I didn't know any better. I thought this was life. And then, you discover that and you're like, oh, I'm fucked up. But then you kind of like have to bring it back down, to, yes, I am, but so is everybody else. You know what I mean? Are you still with me? I think I lost you.
Yeah, I'm still there. Sorry, I just got a thing that said the connection's unstable. But I don't
Yeah,
know
your
if that is.
video is frozen. That's why. Where we at? 26 minutes. Let me mark that in for editing.
Well, good thing I wasn't talking while it was happening.
That's cool. Still frozen. Is it me or is it you? I can't tell if my internet's going down. Let me check. No, okay. No, I'm still wired. Okay. Oh, you're gone.
Hello.
Hey, there you are.
Cool. Sorry, I'm just closing anything that would require internet.
No worries. 27:30. All right. Edit points. So I was saying that it is kind of a roller coaster when you make that discovery of what you're going through and what you went through. Because that same thing happened to me, where I lived a pretty crazy childhood, and on top of that, what I did was just stack on being in a band and traveling and just kind of, just pour alcohol on it, and you know what I mean? And then I get older and I realize, like, oh wait, my childhood sucked, and this is where all this is coming from, and I'm I need help. I'm all messed up. But then you kind of have to bring it back down to, I'm not alone. There's a lot of people going through stuff. Some people, like you said, going through worse. And then you have to build that empathy, and kind of be understanding. Have you considered maybe, still becoming a therapist? Like maybe even like a niche, like specific just for metal dudes? Because metal dudes and ladies are very, people, they put a facade of this like strong, like, we're tough and we're just gonna do what we want to do, but most of the metal dudes and ladies are messed up, and need help.
No, I completely agree with that. It's not just a genre specific thing. I mean, everyone needs help.
Sure, yeah.
But no, the answer is definitely no. I do not have the patience anymore. Maybe at one point in my life I did, but I definitely don't have the patience to sit there for an hour. And for a close friend, yeah, of course, and it's not like a weekly thing, whatever. But as a job or a repetitious thing, first of all, I just know myself better these days. Like you live with yourself long enough, you get to know what you are capable of, what you like, what you don't. Where your strong points are, and repetition is most certainly not my strong suit at all. I don't like being in the same place at the same week every week. I just can't, I don't even like having this like timed meetings or whatever, even with my own therapist, I like to change the time slots, because just because that's who the fuck I am. I don't like to have the same time slot. It's too repetitious for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I if I had a job where I had to clock in and clock out every day or felt like I was doing the same thing every day, just fucking kill me now, man. But that's me, like there's other people, even in metal, like touring, who need that kind of, thing in their life, and that's cool. Everybody's different. I'm just not that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm somewhere in between, I like having some stability now cause I'm 40 now and I got a wife, and I like to have some stability, but not repetition. Repetition drives me insane as well. So I put here, do it yourself, cause you were talking and I took a note, and I think it's because I feel that so much. The whole, when you were looking at the landscape and seeing that no one else is doing it, and you said, let me, I'll do it myself. That is, I love that. I love that attitude, because a lot of people don't. They'll just sit around and just wait for somebody else to come along, or just not do anything ever. They just don't do it.
Yeah. Well, that is reality. It's a lot of people, they have good thoughts or they have good intentions, but they just don't have the gusto, whatever, to do it. And I really think a lot of that comes from all the distractions in life, not to say that what I'm doing is not a distraction. It certainly is, it's just like, for instance, I'm not a person that, I don't know the rules of any sport in the world. I never got into sports. I never got into pop culture. I never got into TV and stuff like that. I'm not a spectator. I put it that way. I'm not a spectator at all. I'm terrible. I can't sit still. You take me out to a fucking deserted island, I'm going to look for something to do, like I'm going to try and go scuba diving or whatever the fuck, just do something. I don't like just sitting there,
Yeah.
And that's my distraction. I like to create things. I like to make things. I like to do things. Some people get really comfortable with getting home after work and putting on a TV. I went home after work and created this thing called Metal Injection, and I have 18 years of me deflecting maybe my problems or whatever else, or distracting myself with creating this thing, called Metal Injection. And I'm always been the DIYer. That's always been a really, really big thing for me personally. Like I never really got comfortable with other people doing things for me, because I grew up at a time in a world very, very, very poor, and there was no one else to do it but myself. If I wanted to make anything happen, it had to be by myself. And it's moving forward, it's a little bit hard for me these days to let go of certain things, for sure. Let go of the reins. Like even with like moving into my new position, in this acquisition where I'm now overseeing Metal Injection and Metal Sucks, Blast Beat Network, and I have a lot of people under me. It's hard sometimes to let go of certain aspects, to these people that I've been overseeing for so long. And some of them, have good reasons why I shouldn't, but others, like, I have to take like a second thought about it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, shit, it would really clear up my time and day if I didn't have to worry about this little nuance that really isn't going to impact me in any way. I have to have those conversations with myself to let go, because I'm such a DIYer at heart,
Yeah, and the DIY mentality, I mean, I have that as well, and it's, the roots of punk rock and metal and everything, and it has that, it comes with that connotation of, if it's got to get done right, I'm going to have to do it myself, because, and you do have to work with yourself about letting some of that go to free yourself up. So in that mentality of DIY, and you said it yourself, you started Metal Injection. There's a lot of people that have an interest in starting something like this and don't know where to begin. So tell me how you kind of started it. How long did it take before Metal Injection was a thing, like a real thing, not just, oh, I have a thing called Metal Injection. Like when it started becoming credible, where people started respecting, the articles that are coming out and all those other things.
I mean, it's debatable if it's respectable still, but no, it started in 2003, really. I was working a telecommunications job. I was actually managing a telecommunications center, and I was seeing this girl. She wound up bringing in a couple of guys for a job interview. One of them was wearing an Opeth t-shirt at a time where nobody knew who Opeth was. So I was just like, I don't even know your story, but you're both hired. And the other, not the guy wearing the Opeth t-shirt, but the other guy wound up being Rob Paspani, and he wound up becoming my business partner in this venture called Metal Injection. And he was just kind of getting into metal at that time, and he was very green about the whole thing. So he would come to my office during his lunch breaks and just listen to me talk about, the history of heavy metal and like why this band matters and how it's attached to this band and this genre. And I was just kind of like had a really fun time laying out what metal was to somebody new. And one day he's just like, dude, you know so much about metal. Like, you ever think about starting a TV show? And that's really all it took. It was just like, yeah, fuck it, let's start a TV show. And I just like went to work. I wound up maxing out my credit card on, cameras and editing software and everything that we needed, hosting space or whatever else. Well, it started as a TV show first. So really like the story of Wayne's World, I always say, is kind of like my story, where, it was making dumb sketches. And then in between that, I used to be a VHS tape trader. So I had a lot of tapes around with metal content, and I would splice that in between our dumb, sketches or whatever, and then put it up on Brooklyn Cable Access Television, and hand the tape over every week, and they would just run it in the middle of the night. And I didn't really know how to market anything other than bands that I've been in, so we made flyers and we'd stand outside L'Amour's and other shows and hand out, they're like, hey, watch my TV show, next to the guys, be like, hey, check out my band, check out my show. Right. I'm like, hey, watch my TV show, and it fell in the hands of Roadrunner Records at one point. And I think it's probably Mike Gitter who gave us our first real shot, and Amy Ciaretto as well. Like the two of them were the people that really kind of saw what we were doing and be like, oh, this is really cool. This is really interesting. Could we start sending you, new videos, VHS videos of bands? And I didn't even know that was a thing at that time. So I wound up in the mail just getting a lot of VHSs directly from the labels in order to splice their brand new music videos onto the TV show. Fast forward January 1st, 2004, this entire time we have this like idea to put what we're doing on the internet, because the internet we saw was like this growing market. We wound up doing this trial thing with Brooklyn Cable Access where they showcased our show on the web for a day, and it wound up going really well. So we knew that there was a market there. And this was before YouTube existed, so like getting video on the web was such an arduous task, and the only place that was really doing it was porn. Porn was, of course, like the forefront of technology always. So, we're kind of like taking a note from the porn industry and trying to put metal videos on the web. And
I don't want to cut you off, but like I feel like that's why we have cell phones today. I feel somebody was
any technology.
I feel I need to have porn in my hand.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, any technology that you're thankful for, porn was probably there to really amp it up first, So yeah, you could thank porn for Metal Injection and metal videos on the web, Anyway, yeah, so it became a website January 1st, 2004. It went through so many iterations. We just stopped the TV show in the sense where it's going on TV, because now we have a platform we could talk to the whole world if we wanted to. So we just kind of focused all our attention on there. And it really started as a place just to showcase our show, our 30-minute show. But it really transformed into so much more once we started adding other elements like, the blog section and, you know, like editorials and photography and all kinds of other shit. And we just really wanted to make it a portal or a hub for everything metal, the full metal experience. There was nothing that we were like going to shut out, and over the years, 18 fucking years, we've tried it all, man. We tried creating a dedicated radio station, all kinds of spin-off sites and, all of it, man. If we haven't done it ourselves, we've been attached to it somehow. And I would say it took like 5 or 6 years for it to really kind of take off, in terms of like that. I think it was around 6 or 7 years is when we all quit our day jobs,
Wow.
When I say we, I mean like so in that time, we also started Blast Beat Network, which is the advertising network, that really funnels all the advertising for Metal Injection, Metal Sucks, and the other publishing sites that we have on there, which has changed over time. We originally had like Decibel on there, and now you can see what it is. Go to blastbeatnetwork.com and to find out more. But that was a turning point for us when we became, instead of relying on another ad network to funnel all our advertising, we wound up doing it ourselves. Again, the DIY method. Mm-hmm. We literally put any kind of money that we had back into this infrastructure and an ad network, because we had the foresight that this was going to work out, and it did. So after about 6 or 7 years, we all quit our day job. All the partners quit our day job, and it became our full-time jobs, and it's been ever since. I think it was really around then that it became a respected institution, I want to say, because our lives depended on it. And when your life depends on something, no matter what it is, you're going to do it to the best of your ability, Yeah. And I think that really kind of came through. So I would say around then, that's when it really changed.
Yeah, man. I guess, there is an element of when you were starting this, I guess the internet wasn't that big in licensing issues wasn't really a thing, because that's one thing I wanted to do with this show when I first started it. I was always putting in the beginning and at the end of the episodes music from from the guest, or if the guest didn't have music, I would put one of my friends' bands, and it kept getting taken down. I kept getting, licensing, copyright, this, that, and the other. I'm like, I'm just trying to get, if somebody watches the episode of me interviewing a drummer from a band, I want them to hear what the band is. And but back then, they weren't taking down as much. So I guess once you got with Roadrunner, I think that solves that issue with the licensing, right?
No. So no. So it's just one of those things. Like, you're right. You're absolutely right about that. In the beginning stages, I'll say the first 8 to 10 years, the internet and doing a lot of that stuff was the wild, wild west. So you're kind of out there just doing it, not really thinking about copywriting and licensing and whatever else. You're just there to produce, content, and however you possibly can, that is suiting for the band in question, as well as yourself, or not yourself, but your brand, And over time, that's obviously changed a lot. Like nowadays, the legal system is caught up with the internet, and everything changed. It was a giant change for sure. In the second half of the lifespan of Metal Injection was very, very different. And continues to be, like things are like every year, I would say that there's constantly updates basically on how things are done and what we can't do, what we can do. I would say like just up to maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was still putting music in a lot of the content, and then I had to start removing it simply when the copywriting and licensing became such a way harsher, Yeah. So it's and it's definitely something you have to be cognizant of moving forward at all times. Like, all right, well, is this going to get claimed? Am I going to be able to monetize on this?
Even if you have permission from the artist, it's just crazy, because I'll have the drummer. Yeah, you can use the song, and then I put it up, and then the algorithm The AI overlords just take it down.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have to combat that, from the backside, and it's not easy, man. And it gets harder and harder and harder every year for anyone to make any sort of money doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be crafty in certain ways, and I always feel for the artist the most. I mean, like, everybody's wants a piece of the money, and they're still the last to get it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's terrible.
But things are constantly changing, man. This is a constant evolving industry, and especially what we do in media is I want to say one of the hardest things of all, to deal with, because, like, labels, they only have 10 releases for their quarter that they have to focus on, maybe 30, 40, whatever for the year that they have to focus on. Publicist, same. With media, I get hundreds and hundreds of solicitations every week, and it's insane.
Yeah, I hear you. I may not get to the level that Metal Injection gets, but I definitely have way too many emails that I want to listen to them all because I love music and I want to support, but there's so many. It's so many.
Yeah. I mean, I used to pride myself on being the guy who would check out at least like 200 to 300 releases every year, and I even had like a whole thing about it. I'd give it like a one song shot. Like, every time I get a new album, like, all right, I'll listen to one song. Is it something I'll even remotely be interested in? And be like, okay, so I'll take the album and I'll put it into a folder that I'll like do a re-listen of it later when I get a chance, and then I'll give it like 3 songs in the second round. And if they passed a 3-song test, I'll listen to the entire album. And that's really how I found a lot of my favorites throughout the years. But nowadays, it's like I don't even know that I have the energy to do that anymore,
Yeah, man. Before we wrap up, because we're getting close to an hour now, which is crazy. It flew by. Meek is Murder. I mean, do you still do music? Like, are you still trying to keep that as a thing with so much you have going on? Like, I can't imagine that you have time for that.
Yes and no. I mean, the Slay at Home outlet allowed me to play with a lot of my friends and heroes around the world, which is fucking amazing, and I'm truly stoked on that. And I haven't now been in a band, I guess, in about 3 or 4 years. Meek is Murder went on hiatus, really because our vocalist / guitar player / songwriter Mike Keller wound up getting a grown up job. he got a phone call from Apple. And because he was an app developer for Grubhub in New York City for the longest time. So when we were a New York-based band, things were working out. But when he got a phone call from Apple, it was very sudden. They literally plucked him and moved him to San Francisco within a week. And wow. It was like, again, very sudden. So we had no choice but to kind of wrap it up and go on hiatus and play a farewell show like that we scheduled within like 3 days of knowing, and just did it, and that was it. And we haven't really played together since. We were in the middle of working on a record while that happened, so I don't know that we'll get back to it. Maybe someday. But other than that, yeah, I would fucking love to work on music. For the last 2 years, I've been writing some shit on my own, but I'm one of those people. I'm like a really, really harsh critic of everything that I do, especially when it comes to music. So I'm writing, but I don't know if it'll go out to the world, if they'll hear it, and if I do release it, when, I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I had something better to say or something to plug. I mean, I did do this cool death metal project with my boy Nick. It's called Night Soil, NITE Soil, and it was a slam death metal project where I had different singers on every track. So I have, Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder on one track, Dave from Revocation, James from Ghost.
I think you had Jessica in there.
Jessica Pimentel's on there. Yeah, so it's like me and Nick are the mainstays as far as the players go, and then I invite like a different vocalist to do different tracks, and I thought it came out really cool. Now that's something that I was proud of. That's the project that really, because I also engineered that record, so it was the record that taught me how to use DAWs, and because of that is now why after that is like when I started writing my own shit. I'm like, oh, okay, well I should use this knowledge somehow and keep it going, and we'll see.
That's cool though, man. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. You're such an integral part of the community of metal, and I'm just blown away that you even have time to write music with all the shit you got going on. But it's cool to hear that you are writing, and
I'll always be a musician first, man. Like a musician and a fan first. Everything else is kind of secondary. I kind of fell into this, and it's a great thing. But like, I'll always be a musician first.
Hell yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I'm honored to have you on. Honestly, I've been, you guys have been helping me out too with putting up articles of whatever when I have a chat with someone. It's really appreciated every time you guys put it on. Like I never intended for the show to even make any kind of news article. Like I'm not here for headline grabbing. You know what I mean? I'm just having a conversation. So to be able to to have the show mentioned on your site really was kind of like, oh wow, am I doing something? What am I doing?
You are, dude. You're doing a great job, man.
You, man.
And keep it up. And I could all the things you said about me, I could say about you, man. We're all in this together,
Exactly, man. Yeah, we are. So I appreciate you. For people that are listening and watching and want to follow your stuff, what's the best one? Is it Instagram? Like, is that where you're most active?
Most certainly, yeah. It's just Frank Injection on Instagram. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out Metal Injection or the Slay at Home festivals, go watch that, because like you were saying, those collaborative, like brand new commissioned pieces are really impressive. They're really, really mind blowing to see some artists from different bands get together to write a song, and also just to mention all your charitable work is really, really commendable. Like that's something I want to get into, is just trying to give back, because a lot of people it's me, and nobody gives back. So kudos to you for that, man.
Thank you, man. Well, I mean, it's the only way I know how, the only way I live. Like I wouldn't be here without people lending their hand, in life to me. Not necessarily in metal, but just I've been through some rough shit, and there's always seems to be a bright side somewhere in that tunnel. So I'm very aware of that, and I always try to be that for anyone else that I possibly can.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thanks again, dude, and we'll see each other around. I just got back from New York, so I was like, I know that we'll be flying around and we'll run into each other for sure.
Yeah.
So,
you going to Sepultura tonight?
Oh, I don't have tickets, but that would be cool. Yeah, I might try to make some phone calls and see what's up.
Yeah, I'll be out there tonight. So
cool.
Just saying.
All right,
dude.
All right, man. Thanks again, and cheers.
Bye.